Okay guys, so check it out. My truck's got a little problem. On the driver's side wheel, it turns fairly freely. On the passenger side, the wheel is literally stuck. This thing doesn't want to move. And if you look, it in fact is off the ground. And it is seriously stuck. So we're going to be doing some troubleshooting to find out what's up with this bad boy. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is using this 22 mil, I'm going to remove the caps. What you do is just twist it, and in a while it just untwists itself. There's a little thread in there, it untwists itself, and then you can get to the actual bolts, which are also 22 mils. So I'm going to take them off, take the wheel off, and we'll get going from there. Okay guys, so I got my wheel off. By the looks of it, the brakes are still pretty good, and if we look at right here, you will notice that it looks like the problem is with the piston. Okay, and using this 10 mil wrench, I'm going to try to open it up, see if by releasing the pressure, this thing will go back in. We'll try that out and see what happens. I would recommend putting some penetrating oil onto this thing if this thing hasn't been opened in a while, just so that you don't break this. Okay, so I opened it up. And it looks like something's coming out. Let's try to turn the wheel to see what happens. Well, it's turning now, so I guess there's too much pressure in there. Let's close it off and see what happens when I push the brake pedal again and see if I can still turn it. Okay, so I pushed the brakes a few times, and do it this way, and it's seized up again. So what I can do now, I have two options on what I can do. I could either re-bleed the brake again, re-bleed it, or I can remove the caliper and try to push the piston in. So out of the two options I have, whether to bleed the system or pull off the caliper, I'm probably going to take off the caliper just because I don't need a helper. I'm going to pull it off, try to see if I can push this piston in. Okay, so right here you have two bolts. There's one bolt right here and one right here that hold the caliper in place. Both of those are, look at them, they're hex shaped. By looks of it, it's a 3/8. It's the best fit, so I'm going to pop these two off. Okay, so now that I pull the bolts out, they have this like sleeve that goes onto there. I pulled it out. So next thing I'm going to do is, using this flat bar, I'm going to try to pry off the brake caliper. Okay guys, so as you can see, I got it most of the way off. I haven't pulled it off, but it's almost there. A quick tip: if you unscrew the bolts and the caliper isn't coming all the way off, you might need to open the bleeder valve to let some of the pressure out so you can pull it all the way off. Now that I pulled it off, I'm going to get something to catch the brake fluid, and what I'm going to do is compress the piston all the way in and open the bleeder valve and just let it drain. Maybe there's just some contaminant in the brake fluid that's causing it to seize up. Okay, so as you can see, I have the C-clamp put onto here. I'm going to push in the cylinder and release it and see what happens. And then if that doesn't work, what I'm going to do is open the bleeder valve and let it just drain. Okay guys, so here's what's up. I compressed the piston and I got it all the way in. I released it, I put it back on, I pushed the brakes, and nothing happens. Like, if you look at it, it spins freely. When I push the brake pedal, nothing happens to the piston. It doesn't go in or out, it just stays where it is. So what I'm going to do, I sprayed some brake cleaner here. I'm going to unscrew this bolt right here. Connects to the hose. I'm going to unscrew it so I can press the brake pedal to see if there's any fluid coming out of that hose. It's an 11mm bolt. If there's no fluid coming through there, I'm going to have to start tracing it up to see where the problem is. The other front brake connects via T-connector to this brake. So what I'm going to do is unscrew this bolt and press the brake pedal, see if I'm getting any fluid, at least to the brake caliper. If I'm not, then I'm going to have to start tracing it back farther. Okay guys, so here's what's up. I'm not getting any fluid coming out through this bolt. I opened it up, I took the hose off, I pushed the brake pedal, nothing. So what I'm going to do is I traced it up, and it goes up to here and into there. Okay guys, so using a 14mm wrench, broke loose the nut right here. So what I'm going to do is push the brake, see if there's any fluid coming through it. And if there is, then the problem is most likely with this hose or the caliper. Okay guys, so check it out. I'm going to have my assistant push the brake in. Push the brake in. And there goes brake fluid. Okay, so you can let go. So what I know is I have brake fluid coming up to here. But from here down, it's not getting back into the system. And I've heard after they get old, they could break down on the inside, which will cause it not to relieve pressure. So first thing I'm going to do is replace this brake line. Okay guys, so first thing we got to do is pull out this clip right here. You pull this clip out and then the wire should come loose from up top. Okay guys, so I took the clip off. I used a pair of needle nose pliers. What I found easy to do is if you take these two pins off, push them off, it will allow you to pull out the pin easier. So now what I have to do is unhook this right here so I can free it and then just unscrew that. Okay guys, so it turns out what you need is an 11mm wrench and an 11mm socket, or just both 11mm, two 11mm sockets. And right here, if you look under the flap, right here, you have two bolts. Both these are 11mm. You have a nut right here, and the bolt, the other end of the bolt is right under there. And then you just have the 11mm bolt left that's holding it in at the end. Okay guys, now that I got a different brake line on, what I'm going to do now is bleed the system, because since I drained the line, I took it off, a lot of the brake fluid that was in here left, so it's been replaced naturally with air, so I'm gonna have to get all the air out of the system. So what I'm gonna do is, with the helper, he's gonna be pushing the brake pad, it brakes, and I'm just gonna be releasing this to get all the air out of here. Okay guys, so I got everything back on. I'm gonna put the tire back on and I'm gonna give it a little test drive, see if it stops and drives actually. Okay, so I got the truck started. Let's see if it drives. We're gonna go forward first. Goes forward. Let's try back. Back without a problem. Okay, well then there you go. So I guess I got it easy. I didn't have to replace anything too much. Just had to do a hose. So that wasn't too bad. But like I said, if it got worse, you'd have to follow the hose up until you found where the fluid was not coming from. If it was worse, the worst thing that could have happened, I could have had to replace the master cylinder. Lucky I didn't have to, but you could start tracing it from bottom to top, or top to bottom. I started bottom to top just because my left wheel, my driver's side wheel was turning. My passenger wheel wasn't turning, that's why I started from bottom to top. If both wheels didn't turn, then I'd start looking from the top and working my way down. But there you go.